She was just the family maid, invisible, overlooked, treated like she didn't belong. But during one ordinary family trip, a single phone call shattered everything she thought she knew. What Ada discovered wasn't just about money or inheritance, it was a dark secret buried deep within the family she served. A secret that would change her life forever and expose a betrayal so chilling, it would make her question everything about trust and identity. The sun was barely up when Ada zipped her modest travel bag, her hands trembling slightly. The Okoyes were going on a week-long family vacation to Obudu Cattle Ranch, and as always, Ada was going along, not as family, but as help. At 21, Ada had spent the last 7 years serving the family after her mother, the late Mrs. Gloria Okwara, mysteriously passed away. Since then, she had lived with her mother's so-called distant relatives, the wealthy Okoyes, Mr. Chuka, his wife Adan, their 2 children, and Ada in the shadows. The Okoyes treated her like furniture. She was never introduced to guests, always ordered around, and never included in family photos. When the trip to Obudu was announced, Ada had hoped, just maybe, she'd be treated better this time. After all, she'd just turned 21. Maybe they'd start seeing her as more than just the quiet girl who helps around. But no. On the trip, she was assigned a tiny backroom beside the kitchen in the luxury cabin. The 2 children, Hugo and Kayameka, tossed their towels at her like she was a hotel staff. Mrs. Aden never once said thank you. Mr. Chuka barely acknowledged her presence. Still, Ada bore it all with quiet dignity. She had learned early that survival meant silence. She wandered through the resort during her break, admiring the mountain air, the endless green. She clutched a faded photograph in her pocket, the picture of her mother in front of a large white house. A house Ada had never seen. On the 3rd day of the trip, Ada was folding laundry when her phone buzzed. It was a number she didn't recognize. Her heart skipped. It was rare for anyone to call her. She stepped outside to answer, away from the ears of her guardians. Hello, her voice was cautious. Is this Miss Ada Okwara? A man's voice asked. Come. Official. Yes. Who's this? My name is Barrister Osakwi. I'm the estate lawyer for the late Chief Maxwell Okwara, your grandfather. Ada froze. She had never heard that name before. I've been searching for you for months, the man continued. You're the legal heir to his estate. Silence. The wind around her stilled. Ada looked back at the cabin, where the Okoyes laughed loudly around a barbecue grill. Her throat dried up. There must be a mistake, she said finally. I'm just a maid. The man's voice softened. You're far more than that, Ada. Your mother was Maxwell Okwara's only daughter. Everything, the house, the businesses, the trust, it's all yours now. Ada's hand trembled. Her heart thumped in her chest. All this time. All these years of sweeping floors and sleeping on cold mats, then she was the heiress of an empire. But even in that moment of revelation, something unsettled her. Why had no one told her before now? Why had her life been buried like this? And why did the Okoyes work so hard to keep her small? She slowly turned her gaze back toward the house. And that was when she realized they had known all along. Ada sat on a rock beneath the whispering pines, her hands still trembling after the phone call. The wind felt colder now. The world had shifted beneath her feet. For years, she had scrubbed floors and washed dishes in the house of those who, all along, had known her truth and chosen to bury it. That night, as the Okoyes lounged around the bonfire, Ada watched them with new eyes. Hugo, who once poured juice on her bed for laughs, now looked like a stranger. Mrs. Adan, with her manicured fingers wrapped around a wine glass, laughed a little too hard. And Mr. Chuka, his eyes darted toward Ada several times, as if he sensed something had changed. Ada barely slept. Her mind raced with memories, whispers between the adults when they thought she wasn't listening, the way Mrs. Adan had always banned her mother's photos, how no one ever spoke of her father. She rose before dawn and quietly made a call to Barrister Osakwi. "Why now?" she asked. The lawyer hesitated. "Because your grandfather's will was hidden. It was found only recently, locked inside a vault behind a false wall in his private study. It named your mother as sole heir. And in the event of her passing, you." Ada swallowed hard. "Does the will say anything about the Okoyes?" "Yes. In fact, he warned against them. He wrote that they should never be given custody of you or access to your inheritance." Ada's breath caught. So it was never neglect. It was deliberate. Later that morning, as they prepared to check out of the resort, Ada stood at the balcony and observed the family packing. She had a decision to make. Should she confront them now? Or wait until she had solid proof in hand? She opted for silence, for now. But the shift didn't go unnoticed. "Why are you staring at us like that?" Kayameka asked, her voice sharp. Ada offered a thin smile. "Just thinking." Mr. Chuka gave her a long, calculating glance. "You've been acting strange since yesterday." "I just realized something," Ada said softly, folding a towel with precision. "I'm not who you think I am." Mrs. Adan scoffed. "You're a maid, Ada. Don't let this trip confuse you." Ada smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. When they returned to Lagos, Ada slipped away early one morning and visited Barrister Osakwi in person. The office was clean, professional, lined with old photos of Chief Maxwell Okwara, her grandfather. And there, in black and white, was the will. Signed. Stamped. Verified. It listed lands, houses, stocks, and a private school her grandfather had founded in her name. Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Her mother had meant to tell her. She'd tried to protect her. She was poisoned, Osakwi said suddenly, his voice low. Ada's eyes widened. "What?" "We believe your mother didn't die of illness. She was poisoned shortly after writing a letter to your grandfather about you." And just like that, the pieces clicked. This wasn't just greed. It was betrayal. And maybe, murder. Ada stood still, the lawyer's words echoing in her ears. Asterisk, your mother was poisoned. Asterisk, a wave of nausea swept through her. All these years, she thought her mother had died of a mysterious illness. But now the truth began to take shape, ugly, cruel, and calculated. She stared at the last page of the will, where her grandfather had written a note in his own shaky handwriting, asterisk, to my granddaughter, Ada, I leave all I have, and I beg forgiveness for not protecting your mother. Beware those closest to you. Asterisk. It was clear now, the Okoyes had stolen more than her inheritance. They had stolen her identity, her dignity, her mother's life. Back at the mansion, Ada played the role of the quiet maid for a few more days, but everything was different. Every time Mrs. Adan asked her to scrub the floor, Ada stared her down for a second longer. When Mr. Chuka told her to keep the children quiet, she responded with a cold "Yes, sir," without breaking eye contact. She wasn't afraid anymore. Then, one quiet evening, Ada sat them all down in the living room. I have something to share, she began, her voice combat firm. The family exchanged confused glances. I met with my grandfather's lawyer, Chief Maxwell Okwara. Silence. Mr. Chuka stiffened. Ada continued. The will has been found. I am the legal heir to his estate. Everything, the properties, the businesses, all of it was meant for me. Mrs. Aden tried to laugh, but it came out too brittle. What are you saying, Ada? That we've been living in your house? No, Ada said. I've been living in mine. You've been squatting in it. Mr. Chuka shot up from the couch. You ungrateful child. After everything we've done for you. Ada's voice rose. You poisoned my mother. You kept her letters from me. You made me scrub floors while hiding the truth. He froze. Kayamaka and Hugo looked stunned. Dad? Is this true? Ada pulled out a small recorder from her pocket. Don't worry. The police will help sort the rest out. I have witnesses. I have documents. I have the will. Your game is over. Days later, the headlines read, *, prominent family under investigation for inheritance fraud and suspicious death. *, Mr. Chuka was arrested. Mrs. Adan went into hiding. The children, dazed and ashamed, were placed in protective custody pending investigations. Ada stood outside the house she once mopped every morning, now truly hers. She didn't feel joy, just a quiet sense of justice. She didn't want revenge. She wanted her story back. Months passed. Ada used part of the inheritance to open a home for young girls like her, overlooked, voiceless, forgotten. She named it Gloria's Haven after her mother. In an interview with a local journalist, Ada was asked what gave her the strength to rise. She smiled and said, *, sometimes, the ones closest to you bury your truth. But silence doesn't last forever. One day, the truth calls, and when it does, it demands to be heard. *, never underestimate the quiet ones. Beneath silence can lie strength, truth, and legacy waiting to rise. *. Ada's journey from being overlooked and mistreated to reclaiming her rightful place is both heartbreaking and empowering. The story highlights the painful realities of betrayal within families, but also reminds us of the power of truth and resilience. It challenges us to reflect on how we treat those around us, especially those who may seem invisible. What would you do if you discovered a secret that changes everything you thought you knew about your own family? This story leaves us asking, how far would you go to claim your identity and justice?